truth, the lies, and politics. Informative, educative, and analytical. Getting to the real issues that affect an ordinary individual in areas of leadership, governance, social, and economy. The truth, the lies, and politics.
A very good evening to you and welcome to The Truth, Lies and Politics. My name is Paul Ekurot Eki, and this is a dynamic space where ideas collide, opinions ignite, and perspectives are challenged across the table. I do invite you into wonderful conversations that affect you and I on a daily. And so I'd like to invite you into that space. Do get in touch with us on our socials. That is on X, on Facebook, and on YouTube at Spirit TV UG. Please feel free to leave a comment, to leave a note as part of the conversation. Leave a question. We'll be glad to hear from you and read your question. But I do invite you into the space where the conversation begins. Before I do get into our conversation this evening and also introduce the panelists on the show this evening, I would like to just leave this message with you, and then we shall get into what the week has looked like so far. Tonight on The Truth, Lies and Politics, join our panelists on Spirit TV as we dissect the budget allotment of 72.367 trillion Uganda shillings for the financial year 2025-2026, with a focus on debt dynamics, debt servicing, and the impact on citizens. Tune in for an in-depth analysis as we ask the questions if the government plans for the financial year 2025-26 are a step towards debt relief or further entanglement, and what solutions can help Uganda escape the debt trap. Don't miss this and much more on The Truth, Lies and Politics on Spirit TV. Stay informed, stay engaged. Right, that is a message and part of our conversation today, this evening. But just before I do introduce our panelists, just something that has been happening. The National Unity Platform, over the past few days, held their delegates conference, and now the musician come politician, Honorable Bobby Kyagulanyi Ssentamu, is now the party flag bearer. So that's some of the news that is coming in. And also the World Bank has resumed funding for Uganda after 2 years, and the focus is on social protection, education, and refugee support. That is something you should know. But what is on people's minds and hearts is what is happening on our roads, and that is the express penalty system, where we have where we have cameras capturing, and yes, the fines are not making people happy. We've had drivers of public transport parking their cars because they have gained almost 8 million, in traffic fines. There's so much. There's an outcry in the city, and I'll just, hear from our guests some of their thoughts, whether they have been culprits or yes. But to join us this evening on the conversation is, to my immediate left, is Mr. Kenneth Asimwe, who is from CS-BAG. He's an economic wonderful this evening. He is an economist, and I'm glad to have him on the show once again. Good evening and welcome to the show, Mr. Kenneth. Yes, thank you. Next to him is a UPC party leadership member and also a diehard plus a stalwart. Excited to have him. The man plies the route of Kampala, Tororo. I wonder whether the express penalty or the cameras have captured him as a fallen victim or not. Good evening, Mr. Joseph Ocheno. We would like to welcome you to the show this evening.
Good evening. It's a pleasure to be here. But yes, you'll be delighted to know that that criminal penalty has not yet reached me, but it's a criminal thing that we need to reject.
All right. I'll be hearing from you on that note. Last but not least is Mr. Charles Romushana, who is a political analyst but also a former spy. Good evening, sir, and welcome to the show.
The Almighty God of all creation is great, but above all, and I'm a beneficiary of that, is exceedingly merciful. It's by God's grace that I am alive, that I am. When you ask our friends, including you,
Yes.
who pray or purport to pray in churches, etc., when did you last pray for the insane? These people call insane on the roadside.
Mentally challenged.
Because I'm not very sure they are mentally challenged. We could be mentally challenged.
The term given, yes.
These people who you find eating on Kasasuro, sleeping on the roadside, when have you seen the church pray for them? When have you seen, we call it a Rukia Mass? We pray for the children of the likes of Babu, etc., those powerful cathedrals of ours. When have you seen a dead body of such a people in the church and society praying that we've lost them, we've missed them? Yet, they don't pollute our waters with this plastic. They don't pollute our waters, God's creation, with chemicals. They don't supply fake drugs. They are not involved in wars. They are not involved in starving the children of Gaza. They are not involved in massive abortions, what you call family planning. We call them insane. We call ourselves sober. We call ourselves righteous, and we think our prayers are hard, theirs aren't. But interestingly, when Jesus Christ was, I don't know where I was going, saw one of them in a graveyard and went there and had a conversation, but with the force around that was holding that person hostage, and did not rebuke, did not shout, did not curse. Simply ask them that you shouldn't be resident on this man. And an agreement was made on the pigs. Now, these people, viewers of the churches and your pastors, were the first to complain and chase Jesus Christ away because they roast pigs. They never valued the recovery of the other person. No? They did mind about their pigs. We are in trouble as a society, as humanity, if we don't reflect.
Wow, a reflective one for us. And I do thank you, Charles, for that message as we start. You've started us on an interesting pointer. But, gentlemen, I would like to just pick your thoughts and get your ideas on this. I don't want us to spend a lot of time on it because we have a huge chunk on the conversation that we do have. Now, the express penalty scheme, Mr. Kenneth, I wonder whether you have, experienced it either as a passenger or as a driver. Or yes, your thoughts on it, because there's a huge, outcry both on social media, but also when you talk to the motorists on the road, it is, they are unhappy.
Yeah, first of all, of course, I have not personally I have not experienced it, but needless to say is that to a greater extent, this express e-receipting is very unfair to the drivers. First of all, based on the speed limit of 30 kilometers per hour, and of course, including some of our roads really speed to maybe some of the roads that were put in place to quicken transport. So that is one ground of unfairness. Another ground of unfairness is on the education of the drivers. Because before the government rolls out such kind of a program, it is very important that the drivers or the I don't know how to call them, but the people affected by the program are sensitized and they are fully informed so that they understand. Actually, up to now, it is still happening when some people are still ignorant about it. They are just hearing about it. Yeah, recently, which I feel is not good because the government has not done its work on that ground. But also, another thing that I don't know how true this is, but looking at the committee report I saw on social media, I feel like that this is unfair even to the taxpayer, because if government can only get 20% of the revenues collected from this, then really, why should citizens really suffer to just get 20% of the revenues? It seems there are some maybe big people behind this system, I don't know, but whoever designed this,
20% doesn't make sense.
Yes, it's unfair to the drivers, but also unfair to the country, that citizens are being punished to just raise 20% of the total cost to our revenue. So really that is unfair, and I believe that also that contract with the service provider was maybe not informed by rightful decision.
But this is not the first time such contracts are going through. There are been quite many.
Like we shall continue to condemn them.
To raise that out. Mr. Joseph Ochedo, you have been driving at 30 kilometers per hour. I am assuming, you have known the panyas where the cameras are not. I'm wondering, what your thought is this? Does this drive behavior change the tough and fine, the tough penalties, or is it just another way of government collecting money from road users?
I've said this again and again and again, and I'm going to say it again. NRA, NRM is the worst tragedy to ever have happened to this country since independence.
Why?
NRA, NRM
Why
is the
would
worst
you say
tragedy
so?
to have happened to this country since independence. NRA has committed systematic atrocities since directly, by the way, because there are some other indirect atrocities that maybe we wait for authors of the tomorrow, but directly since February the 6th, 1981. Since coming to power, this NRA regime has stolen, has broken, has stolen, has broken, has destroyed, has conspired with dubious foreigners to steal, break, and crack the heart, households, and economy of Uganda systematically. They broke our railways, they bought our buses, they broke our industries, stole our money, currency conversion, brought some funny Italian woman, Pinetti, stolen our money. The level of impunity that NRA has ruled Uganda with, including taking our people into concentration camps in northern Uganda, including burning people alive in Mukura, including treating our people of Karamoja the way they do, can only be the explanation with the excess arrogance that you have a road safety issue, you have a transportation issue, you have a public service issue, and you respond the manner in which these guys do.
But won't it reduce the deaths on the road if you're reducing the...
It's an absolute... It may... Yeah, of course, if Ugandans are prisoners and Ugandans are prisoners in their own country, prisoners of NRA, you could argue. I will say this. Ugandans, this thing shows, Ugandans, you guys are alone. Ugandans, you're alone. Museveni and this bunch, no. Their job is to loot, suck you, and when convenient, find a few dubious foreigners and suck you with them. Hence Pinetti, hence Rocco, Hence that dubious woman in Atiaka has this very particular contract. And so like Nasim will say, cheek. You bring a contract, dubiously from a foreigner. They've not brought the road, they've not brought the technology, they've not brought anything else. The only component they've brought is this ability to do the speed thing. And you give them 80%. So meaning that even if it was a sensible thing,
they invested,
what is it? What is it?
In the cameras,
Which
and in the structures.
No, cameras are not theirs.
I've just told you that they've not invested on anything.
Yeah.
And you get 80%. In which world? In which country? You know, I told Museveni, I don't know what economics this guy is taught. We wasted this. Mr. Museveni, we wasted our money educating this man in Dar es Salaam claiming to be an economist. And I'm saying so very deliberately because this young man, he's an economist. You know? So because I don't know what economics Mr. Museveni studied in Dar es Salaam, where you bring a dubious foreigner to come to suck your economy, you know.
But are you sure he's a foreigner?
We're going to have that conversation.
I was actually coming to that.
Maybe the word dubious means local.
And basically that's what I'm saying. Meaning there must be some back dubious interests behind this thing. Because there's no explanation, because that's my point. How do you do it 80%? You know, one of the most unfair taxes, and I've been campaigning, Charles, by the way, around taxation, the cost of money, and I think we're going to discuss on the budgetary question.
Yes.
You know, much later. The business about Uber. Uber guys, I'm giving the free advert, but it's not an advert. I've been very critical because I don't like them coming to basically suck us some money. But part of the argument I've been making is that, look, you know, 25%, how much goes to them and how much goes to government and how much goes to the rider. And that, does government actually know that you charge them in that, but instead you're being punitive to Charles. Who's actually riding on from here to Biogerere at would be about 7,000 Uganda shillings, but then they put the other percentage. Who takes what? I have been actually saying that the Uber company gets sort of too much.
Yes.
But for this funny, dubious foreign company to get 80%, and 80% of average money would be fine. If it was a one-off fine slap on the wrist on the road for 20,000 Uganda shillings, fine. But 200,000 shillings, you know, guys who are doing this thing are just like Janet, Mr. Museveni's wife, you know, who thinks every home in Uganda has got a fridge. And who thinks every home in Uganda has got a food flask? Take children, give them food, and then they go to the school in Katakwi Primary School.
Wow.
You know, so it is criminally wrong. My view is that campaigners like him ought to organize, as you guys are paid. You know, they ought to organize Ugandans and make Ugandans resist this criminal theft. It's not a tax. You know, because what Ugandans need on the road in terms of the foundation for the road safety is this bunch came and stole our trains. So there are no trains. This bunch came and stole our buses, and there are no buses. Transport. The roads are bumpy. The tiny little bumpy road, you know, the accidents, particularly the much more critical accidents, one of the reasons why they happen is because head-on collisions. Because the roads are narrow and the roads are potholed. You know? Those are the reasons why these things happen. So we need an initial investment.
Better service roads, yes.
Initial investment in alternative transport. Initial investment in training. Initial investment in law enforcement. And initial investment, including in training of drivers. Meaning,
it's a holistic. It's a holistic approach.
Government don't come with a stick chiboko. You don't come from a punitive perspective. Governments are enabling. We pay Mr. Museveni to come and create for us an enabling environment, including to think strategically for us. How do we manage road accidents rather than you guys are silly thieves? You come. We do that. And in any case, the amount of money. And there's some funny guy I'm told was on television the other day. Who said that, oh, it happens even in UK. No, I've moved around the world.
It hasn't happened.
Guys speak, I don't know. I think the UK will be aware. It's not the UK that I know.
All right. All right. We've had that one. Thank you very much, Mr. Joseph. There's indeed a lot coming from you. Thank you very much. I would like to take it on to Charles, and then we switch to our conversation right after. After your, you know, what are we missing in all this?
Yes. Let's first have the basics.
A quick one.
For this fraud to take place, the target must have an email and must be on internet. Because can you receive an email if you are not on the net, if you don't have MBs?
No. The owner of the car has, because by the time you're getting it in, you're getting your registering your car, you have all of these things.
You see, you can't get a car without an email.
You can, if they are transferring the vehicle to you, you have to have this.
Is it compulsory?
Yes, you can't do it without having an email. That is how it's set up in URA.
Yes, but you see, you are assuming that everyone who has a car
has an email.
No, that everyone that those who drive cars drive their cars. You are dealing with, you are assuming a perfect economy. You forget you are dealing with a very silly economy. Because if I buy a car on installments, before it is transferred in my name, whose car is it?
This is for the place where you bought it from. It is their car. So if you commit,
who's going to receive the fine?
Cars are going to be cheaper. It's, I'll pay you half the price, you clear the balance.
Because if,
that's okay. Yes.
If I have a fine of if I have a balance to clear of 5 million and the fine is 40 million, is 30 million, do I need to clear my balance? So how is he going to recover from me?
Impossible. It will be hard. Be a court case.
So then we say tolerable. Don't alert them.
All right.
Now the second one is about the phone. Now but let's have some basics and questions. The first cameras, these cameras you see, came as a result or were built on the foundation of murders.
Allegedly, yeah.
That murders, including Overberga, Kawesi, etc., had to take place for this idea to be politically accepted. In other words, the dealer was waiting for murders. I have not suggested the dealer murdered.
Was waiting for
the murders. Used the tragedy of murders to justify the investment, to justify the deal.
Yeah.
And this is borrowed money.
Yeah. I was going to do that.
For the cameras.
Yes, it's borrowed money. It's a cost to the economy. It's part of the public debt. Those civil society
that is going to tell us about, Kenneth.
Now, you destroy the morality of the population. Because yes, there is confusion on the road. But this confusion on the road, you are responsible.
In what sense?
You destroy the morality. Yeah, you left it free. Actually, you use it as a campaign tool. We left you with freedom to do as you please. You leave my people. You get? So the abnormality became the norm. Right? And the people died on the roads. But before you think about behavior change, there was infrastructure to save lives by Amin and Obote. Forever, I think, around 70 kilometers on the highway, there would be a hospital. So from Kabare, you have a hospital in Itojo. I think that's around 70 kilometers.
It's still there.
From Itojo to Mbarara is around 45 kilometers or 50. There is a hospital. Itojo, then there is a hospital in Mbarara. If you get an accident between Mbarara and Masaka, there is Masaka. If you get between Masaka and Kampala, you have Marago. Go on all highways, there are roads. There are hospitals.
Yes.
You've watched as they collapse. Right? That is an infrastructure to save lives in case. Now, so now from the tragedy of accidents
comes this.
Now you make a deal. To me, I would rather we address that.
Yeah, I get you.
Because for behavioral change, yes, population must be compelled to change behavior.
Fair enough, yes.
That's out of. But which behavior is more deadly? Is more serious than wanting to exploit tragedy of death to steal. Because people, by the way, people root those in accidents.
Yes.
Now we are also rooting. And this is how it takes place. They aim to make $996 billion in 10 years. That's the target. Actually, they call it the business plan.
In 10 years, 900.
You have read the report?
Yes.
Isn't it called the business plan?
Yes, it is.
The designer of this fraud did not call it the plan to change behavior.
It was a business.
So the outputs,
because this is a business.
The outputs will not be. They will not be looking at behavior.
They'll look at the amount of money collected.
Yes. So the business plan is to generate approximately $100 billion in 10 years. So they are looking at the $996 billion. Am I right? No.
Billion Uganda shillings. Not
yes,
so.
It's yes. Yeah. So it's around 360 trillion Uganda shillings in 10 years.
That's a lot of money.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So, no, it's 3.6 trillion.
Trillion, I think so.
So it's at the 6 trillion
in 10 years.
Now, this is the deal. Of that, 80%. But what is the investment? The investment is $257 million.
Which is $257 million.
So can you break it down? Can they break it down to Ghana that the $257 million will include the following? Because as he's telling you, the cameras are already installed. Those are a property of government. So what are you going to put? The signposts, the road signs are already there. Those belong to Uganda government. So for you, what are you going to put that costs $257 million? So I last night I was on a talk show and I challenged Mr. Katumba Wamara, and I'm still doing it again.
Yes.
That let's drive together on this road, be picked by this camera, whether at 50 or at 60 or at 20. Because on the speedometer, I can see I'm at 35. Then we see whether the camera picked me at 35. And then we check how did it calibrate it. Because you see, the road signs, the speed signs on each road are not uniform.
No.
There is 30, there is 70, there is 50, there is 80,
they're
there is 90.
absent, and then they're predominantly absent. Yes.
Yes.
No, let's assume everywhere they are there. So how did you configure them in your cameras? How will the camera of the northern bypass, the camera entering northern bypass, which is 50, read me different from the one on the northern bypass, and read me different from the one on Chitante, read me, you get. How are they going to do it? I want to see
the
practically the thing being tabulated. Because for them to generate 996 billion, to generate these $1 billion, they must do fraud. And it's part of what they said in their business model. Because the business model, they gave risks. And there are two risks. The first risk is if the population complies.
All right.
Like the way it's now doing on Entebbe Road.
Slow traffic, yes.
They are protesting by driving very slowly. So the cameras will not charge them. So how will you make these billions? Because the other guy said we will lose money
if the population comply. All right.
So for them to make money, then they must cheat people. And if they cheat people, how will I appeal? In other words, if you now said today I have driven on Tororo Road and I have not been on Tororo Road, yes, and you ticketed me on Tororo Road, how would I appeal? So Mr. Katumba Wamara says, I don't see how you appeal because
there is no opportunity.
It is inconveniencing. He said,
in 3 days.
When you look through what it takes to appeal 300,000 shillings, it's so inconveniencing that you will not want to do it. You know, that
You
is
want
his
to
logic.
pay.
I
Yeah.
heard his voice.
Yes. Which is
This is
terrible.
a voice of a general.
Yes.
A voice of a former inspector general of police.
Mm.
A voice of a minister.
Mm.
And he's saying, if
It
they,
is
if they cheat you
inconveniencing.
300,000, you will not appeal because it's very inconveniencing.
And after 3 days,
Now, in other words, they will agree with courts if, like, magistrates courts say, if you come, they won't give you bail.
delay.
They want to give you bail. I mean, if I'm protesting a fine of 300,000, the magistrate will say,
Take him
no bail, or will ask you bail of $1 million. So then you say, for me to go on trial for 6
For 1
months
million.
to recover 300,000 shares, kanzeleke. In other words, you have state-inspired fraud. My view would be
yes.
that we reject it on such a grounds. We don't reject it
All right.
on grounds of fines being high or what. Because you
All
need
right.
to fine
Okay.
people who overspeed. But then there are other issues.
Yeah.
Let me deal with
The-
I'm done with appeals.
Yes, because you need to switch to. Yes.
And it's one,
Yes.
NEC. Because in the revenue sharing, this
There is 80% for the company, 15% for the Russian company.
don't
That then there's the 15%, then the 5. Yes.
to the unknown,
There is
which is the fraud.
yeah
Then we have
the 15%.
the innocent with the 15%, which is Uganda government.
Bam.
And
Then
we
5.
have- that one is the innocent.
Okay.
Uganda government means me.
Yes.
Is you.
Yes.
Then we have
5, which is 5%.
so who owns the NEC? How
NEC
can you give-
is an enterprise under the, isn't it? All right.
No,
Can you?
NECA is you can see that the NECA
national-
is in defense.
Yes.
So you now have a ministry that has a company. Because you see,
Wow. When yes.
you know, I told you that I told you before we came here that it doesn't make any meaning. It has no meaning discussing the budget before you interrogate some of these irregularities. That you have got a ministry and the ministry is doing business, and the ministry shares with Uganda government. In other words, NEC through some lawyer sat with the attorney general,
And they gave it a leeway.
and you get 15%. Okay, fine. For doing what? What does NEC do in traffic management? So if NEC is not the one that negotiated this deal, or if the owner of NEC, who far exceeds the Ministry of Defense, because there is also the own, you get, there must be the mega dealer
All right.
who owns both the defense and the NEC. For him to say this should pass
This
through NEC,
5%.
because who audits the NEC? Now, so but here you ask, in this money which you are going to get from me, what role does NEC do?
In all
was
this
NEC,
traffic,
was NEC the deal negotiator? Is it the commission agent?
Right. Yes.
Now, then, when you sack 3.6 trillion shillings from one sector of motorists in an economy, that sector collapses. I can guarantee you,
It will.
either the whole thing will not take off, or if it is take off, the entire transport sector, the motor, the one who now sits on the vehicle, will collapse because it's unsustainable.
Wow. Quite the expose this evening on just that issue, and a big thank you to our panelists for being able to give their pointers. But I would like to thank you very much, Charles. Thank you very much, Joseph, and also Kenneth. I'll get to Kenneth right away because you're the economist. We have a 72 trillion Uganda shillings budget. that tomorrow is going to be broken down. Of course, every year the Minister of Finance comes and just gives accountability of what has happened the previous years, but then gives projections for the next year. But in this 72 trillion budget, the biggest chunk of the questions that Ugandans are concerned about is around debt and the management. We are going to get to that. But what are the what are the positive things? What are the things that you have to say about this budget for 2025-26?
Okay, yeah, thank you. To begin with, for maybe benefit of some of our viewers,
yes,
is to just briefly talk about what a budget is. Yeah, so basically, budget is a financial plan that shows sources of revenue and how the revenue is spent. That is revenue and expenditure.
Yes.
Sometimes these estimates may not be met, the projections, or they can be met. Yeah. So going to this financial year's budget of 72.
So the estimates, because this is it's a critical statement you've made. Yes. Estimates may to be met or not be met.
Yes.
All right.
Projections.
All right.
Yes.
So the next financial year.
Yes. And now coming to the financial year 2025-2026, which will begin effective 1st of July.
Yes.
This year. It's a 72.4 trillion budget, and as we said, of course it has, since you need me to talk about the good things, what we find good in this budget.
Yeah, because that's where we'll start from.
Okay.
Are there good things?
Yeah, of
Should
course.
we be, yes.
Yeah, there are good things in this budget. For example, I can break it down, but for example, the 11 trillion going to human capital development, this means that this is money that is going to health and education.
Okay.
Yeah, so that is...
So they've received a bump.
Yeah, that is something that is positive because there is a rise from the 10.2 trillion that was allocated to the same program last year.
Okay.
Then there is, as usual, there is money that is going to PDM, the 1.075 trillion.
So PDM is back.
Yes, PDM is back, so we think that is very positive.
We want money in people's pockets, in people's homes.
Yes.
Okay.
Because we can see that as of the UBOS report,
yes,
the population census report,
yes,
now up to 33% of our households are still in a non-money economy. They are still in subsistence, just working for just food alone. So that is good. Then there is already money for Emyoga, about 100 billion. There is grow money.
What
money
is
for
Emyoga?
Emyoga.
What is it?
Emyoga. These are government programs that are given to organized groups in the community.
Youth. Is Emyoga for
yes.
youth?
For even non-youth.
Okay.
Yes. Then there is money for the women.
For the women, that is grow.
That is grow. 231.3 billion. We feel that these are good resources. Of course, we also have some resources in Uganda Development Corporation. Usually, Uganda Development Corporation is like investment arm of government. Sometimes it invests in some of the sectors we feel the private sector is not being attracted to, but they are very crucial for our economy.
Right.
I think an example is the Sorot Fruit Factory. That was, and that. So we believe that there are a number of positive things, yes, in this budget,
okay,
that can benefit this population. But also another important thing that I wouldn't want to leave behind,
yes,
is allocating 1.4 trillion towards clearing of domestic areas. Now, domestic areas, these are our people that supply goods and services to government, but government, as usual, it really delays to pay these people. And this money had grown up to 13 trillion.
But they've given
1.4. Because why I'm saying it is a bit positive,
yes,
I'm relating it with that of the current financial year 24-25, because they had allocated just 200 billion.
Okay.
So now, because I remember we made a calculation at that time, and it would take up to about 54 years for government to clear these areas. That is as of the current financial year.
Wow.
If It did not even incur more.
Yes.
But now at this rate, it's around an average of 10 years. So we feel that this is a good step in the right direction.
Okay.
So it is something that we commend the government for doing. But also, of course,
and government always pays.
But also draying has an implication.
Yes.
Actually, we have always thought that this could be part of the reasons why we see most of our businesses here dying after 5 years, after 10 years. Business
because of some of these delays.
Some of these delays to get payment. But also, it's also one of the things that we really attribute to jobless growth. Because every year in, year out, we celebrate that the economy is growing at 6%, and have it projected to grow at 7%. But then we see unemployment, youth are not getting jobs, graduates are not getting jobs. So these are some of the things because they affect company expansion. You know, when you are demanding, remember companies incur loans to even supply some of these things. But then government draws space. So we believe that the 1.4 trillion is something that is welcome.
Yes.
Yes, to our business community.
Wow. Wow. That is so. Those are some of the positives in this budget. Of course, there is the other part, you know, points of concern that I think you will get through. But Mr. Joseph Ochieno, on the I don't know that you've had time to interface with the 72.4 trillion Uganda shillings budget. Of course, it's been a bump from last year. It was it 72.1. So
it's a 0.3%
increase. All right. I wonder what your thoughts are from hearing just a snippet. I don't know if you've taken time just to look at some of the proposed things.
I got the stuff.
Yes.
And when I was passing Nigeria Road coming to Chiwatule, obviously I had to drive safely. But turns out that the item I was using for charging my car, because of the nature of the road, it went tuku, 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 tuku.
Isn't that road under wax?
If anybody can, and Katumba Wamala comes, allegedly lives near there. So there's something wrong with the NRA guys. So Katumba Wamala is a soldier, so you would expect him to behave like Muhoozi to instruct. But the road between Nigeria and Chiwatule, some works are being done on it, thanks to Auto. But there is a 1 kilometer thing where you genuinely get sick. So the connection from my phone got off. So by the time I was reaching your studio, because for us UPCs we keep time.
You hadn't.
No, but I perused through the whole thing. So my phone now, you can see, has got no power.
Yes. But
so that is NRA, that the state of the broken economy by this regime, because that's an infrastructure thing, that's an energy thing, that's a technology thing, that's an efficiency thing, and it's purely an economic thing. The economist is here. Number two, yesterday in the plush corner of the space in which I live, there was no power from about.
And that place is good. It's tarmac.
9:30.
We worked on it.
It's not about tarmac. It's an upcoming part of Kampala.
Okay.
You know, but there was no power from 10 o'clock. I returned deliberate about 11 o'clock at night, partly because I knew there was no power, but I had an extended meeting with somebody in our hotel. So there was no power the whole day. Yesterday, in part of Chira, that's northern part of the other end where, no power. In the area where I live, and the area where I live is an average upmarket, no power. And on my way towards Chiwatule, Nigeria, all those places, I noticed there was no power, part of the early evening kind of stuff. Now that's death of an economy. Now if Mr. Museveni the other day was grandstanding on this State of the Nation address thing for which a future UPC government would review whether necessary,
my
to give an account is
that's
a waste of public money. That's a grandstanding for nothing. It's a place to go and eat money. Granted, the other day he went ahead and established that some woman had eaten money in Liantonde, in one of his ministers. I would break that and mobilize those resources and use it for resettling Karamojong children in the streets of Kampala, and then focus on the budget thing which is happening tomorrow, because that is a much more sensible thing to do. But that said, on the brief stuff, purely from what has come from CESPAC, I don't think that's good news. I don't know.
The bump in human capital.
I don't know how you can clap that unless this PDM thing is a social security safety net. Unless it's a social security safety net, where we are saying we are giving 1 million shillings to the most vulnerable in our community. Fine, I'm a socialist. I'm for it. But if we are clapping that this is a way to end poverty by giving, because there's no money in Nagongera, no money in Nagongera, so give families 1 million shillings. What are they going to do with it? So in other words, we are compelling villagers, predominantly illiterate people, to learn how to do business.
Without educating them?
Without educating them. Number two, there is another lie. You know, Dr. Bote, you guys, you're young. Dr. Bote told this country that Museveni is somebody who, to quote Dr. Bote, I did not say quote, that Museveni is a pathological liar who only tells the truth by accident. And I'll talk infrastructure on the basis of this budget stuff later. How he told you guys that he was going to sort out rail networks in 1988, but now there's no rail that goes to your Soroti. So this guy has been making journeys around the country in the name of PDM. And you guys, you need to be interested in this thing. This guy goes around and says he's seeing projects. I don't know how many projects, Ken, that have been televised around the country where Museveni spends billions of shillings traveling and inconveniencing people in the streets, and some of his soldiers beating up people to go and inspect these projects. You can tell me that since the introduction of PDM, that is a 1 million shilling project which has turned up into a farm. No, because they are lies. All these places where Mr. Museveni has been going are farms which will have been in one way or another already established, yes, for NRA supporters. So, since PDM, isn't it the first financial year?
It's going to be the second?
This is the fourth.
The fourth.
So I don't know how many projects. Somebody can tell me that people started with PDM money and is now producing 300 goats and things like that. No, because it's not true.
You're not sure. You think that is a lie.
It's not true.
Yes.
And I stay challenged.
Yes.
And let somebody come back on this program from Museveni's office, including more NRM PDM monitoring kind of thing.
We'll get the NRM and then just focus on PDM.
So it's not true. So no, PDM is not the answer. Number two, there is a lie going on around that you pick a miserable family in Liantonde where children don't go to school, give them 1 million shillings today, but tomorrow they can't go to a health facility and get medicine. Tomorrow they cannot pay school fees for their average children.
Right.
And tomorrow they can't get jobs. I've got people here, including someone who someone who graduated 7 years ago with a fantastic degree, does not have a job. And they're looking for jobs, and they're looking for jobs for 300,000
and you've grown 6.1%?
How you link
6%.
How you link that PDM money to that? It's not. So it cannot be a plus. The plus, if we took the average economic projection, and by the way, the 6% thing that this guy's just thumped.
Yes.
Did you know that 6% was an average between 1962 and 71 when Museveni's friends, the Idi Amins and
so we are still riding on that 6% from...
That was average. That was an average. He's the economist here. Let me tell you that in 1983, 2 years into Museveni breaking people's necks here in Luweero and throwing bombs here in Kampala, Uganda's economy grew GDP 29.6%. The following year it was a dip because as a result of that.
Yes.
So now it's being presented to your cameraman who were born the other days in Uganda. No, it's not true.
Yes.
And then finally, if you want to connect economic growth with it, you look at the interest rates. In part of the projection that they're trying to talk about the financial sector, because I saw part of that,
Yes.
the budget projection thing.
Yes.
They're talking about the cost of money interbank lending
managed.
at 11%. Now, if the average interbank lending is 11%, what on heaven is Kasaija, the specialist in Mabati's, flying over his neck? Okay? Is it that average lending rates to average Ugandan citizens at 24%? Why?
So if he's managed it at 11, now why is
Why
it 24?
interbank lending
The
at
economist will tell us.
11%? You Ugandans, you are on your own. NRA is pushing their agenda, their family agenda, Pineti agenda, foreign agenda, and IMF and World Bank exploitative excess capitalist agenda, not Ugandan agenda. That is it. And then finally, granted, we can talk about the new big terms. What do you call human index, whatever?
Human capital.
Oh, human capital.
It's the biggest. It has 11 trillion, I think, 11 point something trillion.
They took big words, but you know what? These big words, no. Me, I went to Mwira, I didn't go to Mutare. Mutare schools, boys have got ways. They're fantastic guys. Many of them are my friends.
All right.
But some of them have got ways of capturing Uganda and Rwanda.
Into that.
I went to Mwiri.
Yes.
My commerce of Mwiri, commerce, not even before the economics, tells you that if you look at a breakdown of our national budget, those are figures they talk about. Look at spends for president's office, look at the spends for defense, look at the spends for state's house, look at
security,
security, and then the other one, which is so-called classified budget.
All right.
And you look at the 2 trillion, and you see Babu dying, here. And you see Mila Gonja, husband dying. And you see this little child in Nagonga dying over malaria drugs. No, you want to mobilize all these people, including Kasaija and this Mr. Museveni, take them to Luzira.
All right, we're going to put a pause right there, and we're going to take a quick break, but we do come back with Charles Romishana. We're going to start from that point as we continue the conversation on the budget that is going to be read tomorrow. And in case you have a question, in case you have a comment to make, please do get to our comment section on X, on Instagram, and on Facebook. That is at Spirit TV UG. We'll be glad to hear from you. Stay tuned.
Truth, the lies, and politics. Informative, educative, and analytical. Getting to the real issues that affect an ordinary individual in areas of leadership, governance, social,